Hello and welcome to Conquering Mount Scrapmore. Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to talk to another YouTuber called Kelley, and her channel is Kelley's Cruises, Crafts, and Quilts. Now she is in my neighboring province. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, and she's in BC or British Columbia. And we're going to just have a little quick chat and have some fun today, and hopefully find out more about Kelley. So Kelley, you gonna say hi to everybody or?
Hi Brenda and hi everybody else.
Yeah, this is fun. I was so glad that you agreed to do this kind of interview thing. I know you had wanted to do another so long, but quite honestly, the joke around here is when mom has more time, which means it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I have that problem too sometimes.
I retired. I can't figure out how I worked. I can't figure out how I worked for a living. Like, it's just like bizarre to me, right? So it's just, and I've been retired like 9 years, and my time management skills retired at that point too, apparently, because I have none now. So let's get into this. How long, Kelley, how long have you been quilting?
I started in about 2015. There was a pretty good local quilt shop that was doing classes, and it was something I thought of but never got around to. And then I thought, oh well, there was a class, and it's like beginners, so you learn the basics. And we did a alternating 4-patch, so some about matching seams, about putting borders on, pretty simple.
Yeah,
that was the first one I did.
And were you hooked then or not quite?
Yeah, pretty much, because in conjunction to that, I was doing a soccer quilt for my daughter. The alternating 4-patch was way easier.
Was it like, are you talking like a t-shirt quilt or?
Yes. Yeah, she had jerseys, and I cut them all up and put interfacing on them and made them all the same size. And I've discovered I loathe flannel. Never again, ever.
Yeah, Minky would be I only ever made one thing with Minky, and because it was given to me in a donation bag, and it was long enough to make a oversized muff, like I could wear it like a head muff.
Yeah.
Or it can pull it down like a throat scarf and fold it over in front. The thing is coming apart already.
Oh, because I never used Minky before.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simple to make, right? And this thing just, yeah, no.
All right, good to know. Maybe I won't want to use it then.
Yeah, I found Minky really hard to use, but then I have a vintage machine, right? Like some people have more, like with more zigzag attachments and all that, all this other kind of stuff in their machine might find it easy, but and the fluff that came off, and it was just a little piece.
Oh yeah,
big, and it was like, oh my gosh, couldn't believe what fluff ended up in my machine after that. So I was like, okay, but so what kind of things have sparked your quilting adventures? Like, what kind of, like, is it the fabric? Is it the design? Is it all the threads you get to play with? Is it, what is sparking your quilting adventure?
Usually what makes me intrigued at the first thing is a pattern that I like. Like I'll come across something and go, or somebody did something and go, oh, that's really cool. I like that. So mental note, right? But also once I started on this grad quilt kick of mine, I asked the recipients kind of like what colors they want, or I don't go too into it because I kind of want to do my own thing, but at least I'll give them color options. And like if they really hate stripes, then I obviously won't do a jelly roll race, but I just kind of need parameters, and then I find what works and go with it. But usually it's because I find a pattern that looks interesting. Most of the time that's how I start it. Or somebody that like interest in mind that they have, right? Like that the panel that I was showing you guys before. It's for my family. Yeah, the gnomes.
Yes, show us the gnomes.
They're rabidly fan of gnomes. They have all kinds of seasonal gnomes.
Yeah.
And I happen to have the panel, so.
Do you have that panel within arm's reach to show us?
Yeah, just a moment. I got a couple borders on it. Hold on. It's just sitting
there. Ooh, it's almost a show and tell. Cool.
Hang on, make sure it's right side up here.
Oh, wow.
Can you see it okay?
Yes, bring it. Yeah, just a little tad close. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Better?
Yes, that is cute with the vintage truck and the Christmas tree.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty Christmassy, so that's why I was using like Christmas trees with stars and stuff. And I'll keep working on it a little bit more next week. For now, it's out of the way. But that type of idea, like things that people like. And I made a library quilt for my sister-in-law when she retired because she was the head librarian of the library in Summerland. So library quilt was kind of obvious, right? Like, yeah.
That would have been fun actually. I've seen those bookshelf quilts, and they're always people always put other really cool things in there. Like they'll all of a sudden come across a Japanese vase in the middle of the books. They'll take out books and they'll throw in something of theirs instead, or a jar of jelly beans all of a sudden is there, from like a leftover block from I Spy or something.
Yeah, there's always cool. You can use up scrap for books. It's perfect. I mean, some fabric doesn't loan itself to look like a book, but lots of it does. And I used free patterns from Fandom and Stitches because my sister-in-law is a Harry Potter fan. So on the bottom shelf, there's the Sorting Hat and Hedwig and a candle. And then some of the books were the Harry Potter books, like History of Magic. And so I did her one sort of Harry Potter row, and the rest of it was just other books. And I asked her, my niece or daughter, like, okay, give me your mom's favorite books that I should definitely be including. And then I just sort of did random other ones that like everybody knows, like Sherlock Holmes and cooking and like sort of common, right? Yeah.
Oh, those would have been fun. Well,
yeah,
you're gonna have fun with this hobby, because I mean, for me it occupies such a big part of my time, right? So yeah, you better be liking it.
Yeah, it was fun. I'd probably do another one sometime for other people. We'll see.
So was there now with a lot of quilters that I know, they started because a baby was being born, or their niece was getting married or something. They had a reason why, when they why they had to go run out. Do you have that kind of like, why did you start? Was it just because you were interested, or was it, oh, I have this project I would love to do, or like why, like, so why?
It was more just being interested. I had done cross stitch for a long time, and I started to not quite get arthritis in my hands, but I'm in my mid-50s and I could feel things starting to happen. Plus, the vision slips after a while, and I have bifocals, and it was becoming harder to see.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I don't need to be doing that much stuff by hand anymore.
Right.
So let's do something else.
Yeah, because if you're gonna sew, like if you like sewing, sewing machine, quilting just moves right in there, no problem. Yeah.
And I got a new machine at the time I did my class too, so it was all good.
So you started quilting before the pandemic. What was the biggest impact of the pandemic from your quilting, on your quilting?
Oh, I just did more of it pretty much. I mean, what else we're gonna do? We're stuck inside, right? Okay, well, I'll start this one and I'll start this one, and carry on.
Yeah, one of the things I found, I did the first thing out of the gate, I think I did a house quilt, because we were supposed to shelter in place, and so okay, a house quilt.
That's a good idea.
All of the things that happened right at the beginning of the pandemic in our neighborhood, like the back alley got dug up because of a gas leak, and there was coyotes walking down the alley, and this neighbor and that neighbor were always out, and kind of like that rake, the raking of the grass, they were more than 6 feet apart, but you could tell they were, okay, measure this with your rake, Martha, kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, we can stand here and talk about all sorts of personal things and yelling it across 12 feet, because some of us are not hearing as well as we used to. But yeah, those kinds of things were I put into that quilt. It was very what's the word? It was a very very twisted, weird little quilt when I got done. But yeah,
but timely, and you have a memory of what was going on.
Yeah, but there's some very surreal parts of it, like I had the sugar skull hot air balloons. you know, to count off the people that were dying. It was just like, okay, yeah, that's a little twist.
Yeah.
Now,
Excuse me.
I'm going to ask you because I know my story, and we were kind of badgered by students to start our channel for about a year. And then we decided, okay, my husband and I talked about our starting a channel for a year before we actually started it. And I regret not starting it when we got first started talking about it. Now, looking back, why did you start your YouTube channel?
Well, it's kind of evolved. See, when I first was starting to learn how to do quilts and do the class and everything, I had asked my husband, hey, do we have a YouTube channel? He signed up for it, like, I don't know, 2012 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he gave me the link and I just took it over and I had my name and I was just going around and watching people do things. Okay, that looks cool. You know, there's a free pattern. And I just sort of kept on going. And then in 2019, a few things happened. My son graduated.
Yeah.
I turned 50. And that's when I started being a travel agent. So I thought, well, maybe I should work on my channel and do my stuff too. And I had idly a travel thing kind of in mind, but I didn't really have like a firm, okay, this is boom, what am I gonna do? Right. But I thought, well, let's just start and see how it goes, you know? Filming things off my phone, the dog playing over in the Zamboni ice over by the rink, etc., etc. So I got going in this travel agent thing. And that was keeping me kind of busy because I had to learn new stuff and how to do things and whatever.
Right.
And then throughout 2019, we did go on a cruise, so I put that footage up and whatever. Well, then 2020 comes along. Well, I'm not doing any work. Nobody's going anywhere. Here I am at home. I'm quilting. Well, then there was the other crafts that started coming up because I was, again, through YouTube, and somebody was making those Christmas balls where you put the fabric in styrofoam, you know, you fold it in a triangle.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, oh, that looks like fun. Let's have a go at that. So I did that. And then other crafts sort of came of it. I thought, well, I do have some old Christmas cards. Let me cut them up and see what I could do. So I made a few Christmas cards from what I already had. So that sort of just, it was just like, what am I going to do? La, 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 my thumbs, right? So it just started off as kind of an idea and morphed into several just because of circumstances.
Yeah. But people had to keep themselves busy, right? I mean, I think that was the biggest struggle for a lot of people because there was so much mental illness that came out of the pandemic because all of a sudden people aren't going out to do stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, you can only so much TV I can stand to watch. I don't know about you, but you know, my husband and I gave up TV when we first got together because it was just not, you know, the commercials. It's just it was like mind-numbing mush. And you know, now we're, you know, like we binge watch, but I mean, like there's so many other things to be doing during the day, right? Like so you can't sit and do nothing all day.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, so it was, I know I was much busier when I was home because I couldn't go anywhere. So I'm home all the time. So I'm cranking out, you know, quilts and doing this and that. I did look back and found an old piece of paper that I wrote on all my UFOs, what things I wanted to accomplish for the month. And at one point I had 0 UFOs.
Oh.
Can't say that now. No.
Yeah, no, I usually have a few on the go, but like I have the main project that I'm doing, and that the one I'm quilting by hand, well, that's just continuing just because I have to do it by hand and forever. But the other one I'm doing is the crumb block one, which I mean I turn them into like dog blankets or, you know, that type of thing, like just whatever. The string quilts that are like they're, you know, 16 by 16, make it a heart, make it a star, make it whatever. Those are continuous. And just that, like, there I always have a box. Okay, let's do a few, stick it in the box, stick it in the box, stick it in the box. And eventually, oh look, I have enough blocks. Throw it into a top of some sort. So they're continuous on and on, but periodically.
Yes, I was one that would come into my sewing room and just sit and make blocks because the shoe box, you know, I'll show you the shoe box. The shoe box was full right? And I suddenly realized I have like almost 200 blocks,
Yeah.
you know? It's like,
So you know what
and
I
I
mean?
would just put them aside. I would store them. So this orphan
It's not
lockdown,
a
all that stuff had to come out, and it was like, oh my gosh.
yeah, it adds up. So I wouldn't exactly say they are continuous projects. They are occasional projects that occasionally turn into something more than just blocks in a shoebox.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I do that kind of thing. I love string blocks. I love sitting there. It's so calming. So just
Hmm.
yeah, it's something about
Yeah.
making string blocks that just, you're like la 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 la,
You
the
don't
whole
have to
time.
think too
Yeah.
much. You just kind of, it's very zen. Just fabric just goes and yeah.
Yeah, and and people go, how could you sit there for hours and do that? Because it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, there's
Until my neck hurts, then I go, oh, maybe I should sit up and walk around a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, until you realize all of a sudden, wow, I haven't stood up in 5 hours. Maybe I should try. We've done that too. Can you tell me a happy story about your quilting adventure?
For sure. One of the very first grad quilts that I made was for my nephew, my sister's boy. He's coming up on 20. So when he graduated, he is the most wonderful kid. He's very smart, like one of those really, really, really smart people, but he has a bit of social anxiety and he never thinks that people should be doing things for him. Like he's not one of those kind of people. He's very humble. He just does what he does. But I asked him, hey TJ, do you want me, Auntie, to make you a quilt? And he said, well, sure, because I kind of like these colors. And yeah, okay, that's fine. So I did one of those jelly roll races that's vertical, so you can change the length of it. And I did it with black and white jelly roll strips and accent colors of dark green, dark blue, and sort of a plummy purple batik. So
Okay,
I made like a little mini strip of those three. So I did a jelly roll strip and then a strip of those three, and then a jelly roll strip.
right.
And I think I bound it in those colors, and I forget what the backing was. But he was just astounded, like Auntie, I can't believe you did this for me. Like it's so he was just floored by it and loved it. So that made me happy because I was happy to make it. It was fun to do. It turned out great. I hoped he liked it. And yeah, it was way more than I ever thought it was going to be. And of course, I mean, I do the piecing and everything, but my neighbor across the street with the long arm quilt in it, which, I mean, that always elevates my humble little efforts into something amazing because I
Yes.
can't do that. So yeah, that was the happiest thing, just because he was so thrilled.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes you give some a quilt to somebody and they're to the moon and back. Joy, just so joyful over
Yeah,
what little
he
thing
was
you
so
were able to
happy.
throw together, when you're, yeah. Yeah, and it makes you feel good too. And it's
Yeah,
something that people that don't do crafts or quilts or they don't get what we feel when we see
yeah,
somebody, he gives them something and they're through the
yeah.
moon. It's just like the best thing ever. Yeah, they
My
don't get it.
sister is a great seamstress. My niece was in dance. She used to make costumes. So my niece and nephew know firsthand about how much work stuff is.
Yes.
So that's part of it. They get it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an accomplishment sometimes to finish a quilt, even just to finish the quilt top sometimes is, a struggle enough. What what do you have? What's a sad story you have?
I think it's going to be coming up.
Oh,
Um, my husband is the youngest of four, and all of his siblings are older by quite a good margin.
right.
And his oldest sister's husband is even older than her. And
Okay.
unfortunately, Tony's brother-in-law has the beginnings of dementia.
Oh,
But for years and years and years, I mean, we've been married for 28 years, and we know that his brother-in-law loves polar bears. Like Tony's sister has cross-stitched polar bears. Well, Legit Kits has that really nice baby polar bear kit.
yes.
So coming up in the winter, I'm going to order the pattern and get the fabric, and I'm going to make it for him. Because eventually he will not remember who I am.
Yes.
But if I put a label on it, other people will know.
Yes. Yeah. It's something that'll give him comfort.
Yes.
Yeah, and he might not know who anybody is, but
No.
this gives him comfort.
Yeah, but I think because he's loved them for such a long time, he will remember that he likes polar bears.
Yeah, let's hope so.
You don't know what sticks in their head, like who's to say, right? But I gotta do it for him anyway, just because.
I know it's kind of, yeah, that's kind of sad. That's it's something too. They also do fidget quilts for Alzheimer's and dementia patients too. That's something else maybe he might be okay with having, that it depends on
Yeah.
where
I was thinking of maybe doing something on the back of it, like I don't know what, put something on it like tactile something.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but I'll figure that out down the road.
Yeah, that would be so, yeah, and I'm so sorry to hear that that's coming up in your life. That is, it's like you lose a little bit of them every day,
Yeah.
So yeah.
He's still good right now, but there's going to come a time where it's not going to be like that. So
yeah, that's true. So what is the hardest and most difficult quilt you've ever made?
I made one of those binding tool stars for Missouri Star. I actually took a class on it. And I don't know what was all about it, but I could not get the side bits to, like, you have to make it like a strip and then the corners on the side to make a big block. I think it's 16.5 inches squared.
Yep.
And my points were just not, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I shoved it in the closet, went, I don't want to look at it. And then finally I'm like, no, I got to get this dang thing finished. So I hauled it out and I persevered and I finished it.
Yes.
And it's for my nephew and his wife. They live on Vancouver Island. My husband's sister lives in the Okanagan. I arranged with a quilting store there and her like, okay, this thing's finally done. Can you take it there? I will give you the quilt top, the backing, a whole big whack of binding.
Yeah.
Take it in, get it quilted.
Yeah.
Done. So the quilting store called me. I said, okay, how much is it? Yep. Okay. Pay my bill. My sister-in-law is going to come get it. She picked it up. She put the binding on, gave it to her son. I never saw it again. Didn't want to look at it. Drove me bananas. So subsequently, this was in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. Subsequently, a few people on YouTube have said they've done it and they did all the piecing with their walking foot.
Yes. That would have been helpful to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So if I lose my mind and try to do it again, I will use my walking foot.
I know it's amazing sometimes how, like people, different things. I have a friend, a dear friend. She's an amazing quilter. She finished her Dear Jane and now she's hand quilting it. And hers are beautiful, subtle colors. And a few years back, I did a sew along where it was to get you ready for the Dear Jane, kind of like the precursor or the, if you like working with tiny pieces like in a Dear Jane, you might want to start here first because it's easier. Talk about perseverance. I decided, come hell or high water, excuse the language, it was going to get done. Ugh. And I'm still fiddling now with the blocks. They all ended up as orphan blocks.
That's how I felt about that dang star.
I got through that quilt. The first thing I did when I got the last block done, I went to my list of things I want to do and I took Dear Jane right off the list. I was like, nope.
And I bet it felt great.
All of a sudden it's no pressure. It's none of this that, and it's funny how quilters look at that quilt and go, I want to make one day. And they have no idea how hard that quilt is. It's like,
yeah, see, and that I understand that, but this binding tool star, it's not that difficult. And I mean, I'm not a hugely experienced quilter, but I just couldn't get it somehow. I had a mental block. I don't know what was going on. I just couldn't do it.
Well, don't all the edges end up being biased edges?
Yes, but I mean, fabric was starch, and I was careful, and I pinned carefully, and I took it at the time the girls at the library, we were meeting once a week on a Wednesday, and I took it over there, and I'm like, okay, guys, am I doing something wrong? And they're all looking like, no, it looks fine to me. Like what? So none of us could figure it out. I went, fine, whatever. I'm just sewing them together as they are. The points are gone. Too bad, so sad. It's done.
Yes,
My nephew's not going to care.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta, okay, that's it, we're done, we're over with. Yeah. And there's no shame in that either. None. You know, and as quilters, sometimes there is no quilt police. We all know this, but you know, there's quilt police. People are gonna say nasty things about my quilt, you know, and it's like we kind of have to. No, it's okay. It's okay if they say nasty things. It's not their quilt. It's not going on their bed. Who cares, right? What they have to say, right? But we, you know, it's judgmental. This, you know, that we get into, and it's like it doesn't matter. Really, it doesn't. I mean, you know.
See, that's the thing too. I knew right from the first hurdle, like I can just power through this, and my nephew is not going to care.
Yeah.
It still looked fine, but it drove me bananas that I didn't know why.
Yeah, things were probably stretching as you were sewing.
Just,
yeah, I know. I don't know what to tell you. I know what quilt you're talking about too. It's a beautiful star quilt.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
Yeah, but
yeah,
boy, yeah, that okay. What? Okay, what is your favorite part of the quilting?
I think it's just mainly the idea of it. Like I like getting I want to do this, and I want to plan it, and I want to get the fabric, or something I've come up with myself, like that rainbow thing we discussed. Like, okay,
yeah,
here's my graph paper and my pencil crayons, and I'm gonna like that part. I like the tinkery part of it.
Yes.
I also like just going through it. Like it's just okay. Well, not that I do daily goals, but kind of. Okay, today I want to sew these 3 blocks together, or whatever, just to get something done. So, like little goal settings, sort of idea. To show, oh, I have progress. I did that today.
Yes, and you feel good about yourself.
Yes, I was productive in some fashion.
Yes.
And a lot of days, I mean, I just zoom and do a whole pile of stuff because I have time. But other days, like I'm barely in here because I'm busy doing other things. So
yeah. Yeah, and again, time management kind of things like, oh, it'll only take 5 minutes. I obviously don't have a clue what 5 minutes length of 5 minutes is anymore. Not a clue.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite part of the quilting process?
Usually getting it all finished.
Oh,
I really don't like doing binding. That's part of it. I do it by machine now. It's way easier.
Do you do a flange binding, or do you do just like sew it on the back and flip it over, sew it on the front?
Yep. Sew it on the back, flip it over, sew it on the front.
I do that in a flange binding, and then so it's sew it on the back, flip it over, and then stitch in the ditch on the flange, and it hides your stitching. It's so nice. It is a very quick finish. And then I'm not hand sewing.
Yeah.
Because by the time you do like a queen size quilt, you feel like this quilt has got 11 sides.
Yeah.
You know, and then you finally, I just go one more corner.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, you know, and then you're, racing trying to finish it. And
on those first few quilts that I did, though, I did hand bind them because my son was playing hockey at the time.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind sitting there at the rink with a quilt on my lap. Okay, the whistle blows, throw a few stitches in. Oh, it's midway between periods.
Yeah.
Then he finished and he graduated and he was off to soccer, and I wasn't going to the rink anymore. So I don't really feel like doing that. Then I forget whose video I saw. Somebody went, okay, sew it on the back, turn it on the front, do this. Genius. I'm doing that now.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's a quick way to finish quilts, right? But and I do like my friend showed me how to do a flange binding years ago, and it's my last chance to add a pop of color. Like this quilt behind me, if I wanted to do like a flange binding on it now, I would add a pop of orange, and you just see like a little micro strip of orange. Yeah, and it would just make everything pop. So,
excuse me.
but
Yeah,
it's
look cool.
kind of like, well, which color and all this other, do you put in there? Like you put in the wildest contrast you can, and you just make
Yeah.
it pop then, right?
Yeah,
So,
you need something bright.
yeah. So,
Oh, sorry. It's
how,
dry.
and you're finding the free motion, the actual quilting of it is fine, and all the rest of it.
Usually I just do like straight lines or wavy lines with my walking foot on, say, like table runners or that type of thing, small stuff. But my neighbor directly across the street has one of those American Professional Quilting System long arms,
Ooh, yes.
and she has very reasonable rates, and she can usually just slot me in because I'm right here. Or she'll say, okay, maybe I can take your quilt in next week, and then she'll text me and say, okay, so and so didn't show up, bring your quilt over.
Yeah,
Because I'm right here, right?
yeah. Well, and yeah, and I mean, quilting by check is a very reasonable option too, right? Look, just
Yeah.
it
She
is
does a
what it
great
is.
job and doesn't charge a heck of a lot of money, and it's all good.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes too, like sometimes you get these special quilts that just need a little bit more custom quilting, or they need something a little bit more, that you've worked on. So yeah. So what 3 tips do you have for a beginner quilter? Like you've been quilting what, less than 10 years, but almost
Yes.
years, right?
Getting close,
But
yeah.
so you're not a beginner anymore, right?
Yeah.
So what 3 tips would you give a beginner? What 3 mistakes did you make, or like what 3 tips would you give a beginner? Somebody going,
Mostly what I found helpful for me was going to take a class. I like to, I mean, watching YouTube is great, but in person to see what other people are doing and ask questions and that kind of thing, that was really helpful for me. So that might help somebody else too. Do a relatively simple pattern, learn from somebody who knows what they're doing. They can give you the pitfalls and be careful of this, or
yeah,
that kind of thing. Um, I also, other than that dang soccer quilt, and as it turned out, the star, I don't really do big ambitious projects that much. That the medallion one's probably the busiest one I finished. Usually I'm pretty simple, but that's also my style. But that could also help somebody, like, just do simple stuff. Maybe not even a quilt, make a table runner, like start off small. See what works. If you like doing this or you hate it or blah 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 blah, then you know somewhere else to go.
yeah,
And what we already talked about, close your eyes and finish it.
yes.
Right? Finished is better than perfect, in the words of Jenny Doan.
Yeah, and who else but
And
Angela Walters says
and,
that?
and
A
Angela
bunch of them say
Walters.
it. Yeah.
And I don't know where I read this way back when. Some smart Civil War lady in the States said, if it looks great from 40 yards away off the back of a galloping horse, it's fine.
Yeah. That's
Finish
right.
it, get it out, done.
That's right. And really that's very true, right? And I think mine would be very similar, except maybe like don't be hard on yourself. There's a lot of people that would love to have the time to go quilt and quilt stuff, and they're looking at your work going, wow, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's very true. We
yeah,
are all
don't
worst
be
critics
hard on
for
yourself.
sure.
Yeah, we're our worst critics, actually, I think sometimes, but the reality is people that don't quilt and see your quilt, they just like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And you've put together 4 patches, right? Because that's your skill level. Don't worry about it. People love that kind of thing. A
Yeah.
baby, if you got all different baby prints in there, and like, all the fun kitty prints,
Yeah.
and make it like an I Spy quilt. Babies love that.
Yeah. It'll be cute no matter what. Just do
Yeah,
it.
it'll look awesome. That child will just go, it's mine. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's like it's hard to encourage, it's hard to give like play. My other one is play in somebody else's color box, scrap box. Stuff that you wouldn't buy is in that box, right?
Yes.
And it teaches you a lot about color, right? Playing in somebody else's scrap box.
Yes.
If you know somebody that does quilt, I tell them always go ask if you can play. Just make simple little blocks out of theirs
See what
and
they've got.
see
Yeah.
what you can make, because you're not using anything that you have at home. Right?
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
Yeah, because I mean, and not only that, the other one is don't be afraid to make a test block.
Yeah, I don't do that. I should probably do that.
Yeah,
I
because
just tend to plow on ahead and.
well, I try to make the test block if it's really, it looks like a strange, strange way of putting a block together. The designer is giving you all these instructions, like you're doing what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I do a test block just to see if I like the way it goes together. And so you end up with sometimes some very weird looking little blocks going, okay, yeah, that's an orphan block.
Yeah.
And on to the next project. That one's
Yeah.
off the list.
No, you're right. That's a good way because then it makes sense in your own head or not, as the case may be.
Yeah. You know what? A friend told me, and I thought, when she said this, I thought, oh my God, is that brilliant? She does all her test blocks, all of her test blocks are in that vintage 30 reproduction fabrics. All of that fabric goes together. So you can get like, 3 or 4 bundles of, all the different kinds of stuff, and then just throw it all together in a quilt because all of it goes together. And she said that's the fastest way to test a block. And then now you have something that you can work with later.
Oh, that's a good idea. And I never buy that stuff because I don't like it.
Yeah, yeah,
it's not my thing.
I have to admit, I love it all.
I guess I'm not vintage.
Do you so you don't have the vintage, the Civil War stuff in your stash either?
Doesn't interest me in the slightest.
Yeah, well, it's a different color palette, that's for sure. And I thought it for the longest time it was not so much. And now, as I'm getting older, yeah, it's it has a place. Sometimes things get too bright and too crazy, and you throw some of those more muted tones in, and it looks great all of a sudden. So
I think all that old-fashioned stuff looks really good with like vintage blocks, like turn dash and
yes,
yeah, it looks cool like that. I have to agree with that.
But yeah, it's I don't know. Like I say, I probably like it all. Okay, what's your 3 most favorite tools?
Well, I can show you. My stiletto.
Oh,
I would not be without this. All the time, some little thing or the edge of something, hold it on, feed it through the machine so it doesn't go wiggly woggly on the end.
You realize you can use your stitch ripper as a stiletto too, right?
Yeah, I know, but I like the length of this.
Yeah, my husband went and got me this one, and it unscrews, and it's got a real good grip on it. And because it's so long, like it's got quite the head on it, that you've got like a pencil.
Yeah,
It's got it's got
that's
a
a
nice
good
little grip to it. I have no idea where he got it from though.
That's an awesome one.
Yeah.
I just like, and it's really sturdy too.
Yeah.
The other thing I like to use are not that I do loads and loads and loads of paper piecing, but I did do like on the Harry Potter ones, Hedwig and the Sorting Hat, that was paper piecing. The Birdie's Mountain Dog.
Oh, yes.
Push it off the wall.
Oh, very cool.
That's a few years ago. That's all foundation paper piecing. Silver Linings Originals. They've got all kinds of animals.
Wow.
I forget how much the pattern was. $12 maybe a few years ago though.
Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous.
Oh. But because of doing that, I bought those at a quarter rulers.
Yeah.
So I have the main size one. Well, I guess it's 10 inches, 12 inches, whatever.
Yeah, 12
and I have the little one.
Yeah.
So depending what I'm doing, I would not be without those.
Yeah, the at a quarter
rulers. The other thing is, surprisingly, my 20.5-inch ruler. I bought that for that damn star thing.
Yeah.
Because you got to square up a big block. I don't know how many times I've used that since. It's come in handy all the time. For just cutting off a big whack of fabric. I just got a quilt back from my long armor and square up the corners, boom, put the 20-inch block on it, trim. Half of it's done right there. Like,
it's funny you should say that because I have Allison's, my friend Allison passed away, and I got all her stuff, and she gave part of that stuff was a 9.5-inch square up ruler, which I thought, why, when you're making 12.5-inch blocks mostly, why do I
yeah,
need this? Well, I know how many times a week I'm pulling it off the wall now and using it
yeah,
because I like it for smaller blocks, and this is what I'm working with,
yeah.
right? It's like, how do I live without this?
I have a 10.5-inch square and a 12.5-inch square and a 4.5-inch square. And I use them all the time too. But this big 20.5 comes in handy way more than I thought it was going to.
Well, it's like that. What was it? The easy angle triangle ruler. That one with the little flat top. That one. How do you make half square triangles without it? Because it's so fast to make them. That way. You just keep flipping along and off you just flip the ruler along and off you go. Right, you're done. But yeah, people are like, oh yeah, oh, I've never seen that before. Wow. Okay. Okay. Any last words of encouragement?
I don't, hang on, I think I wrote something down. Oh yeah. The main thing is, if you're gonna make it for somebody, make a quote for somebody else, make sure the recipient gets it. Like, they understand, they're not just gonna go, oh, that's nice. Because then you've just wasted your time.
Yes.
You might just keep on making stuff for yourself, and that's the case.
Yep.
So everybody that I know, all these grad quilts I'm making, everyone that is getting them is fully cognizant of how the wind blows and the fact that I have worked my butt off on this thing.
Yep.
And you better damn well like it. And they get it. And that's not just my nephew. Everyone is like, oh, wow. Oh, thanks. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I know. People sometimes they don't realize. Like, what was it? Bonnie Hunter, Crazy Pineapple. I love doing that one. It's a foundation paper piece project that it is so restful to do, and people are going like, "It's so tiny. There's 45 pieces in a 5-inch square. Are you nuts?" But I find it comforting when I'm stressed out. I sit there and I pull it out and I run blocks through and I make it. I'm all relaxed now. People don't get that, but yeah, hours and hours. You'd spend weeks and weeks and weeks, 8 hours a day on that pattern to come up with a quilt. But yeah, people don't grasp how many hours you sit and sew making that kind of a quilt, right? So
Yeah. And most of the people, like family members and friends and stuff, they do other things. Like, they might be crafty in another way.
yes,
So that's
they
helpful.
tend to get it more than the guys
Yeah.
that don't do crafts. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if you do even what was it there? A friend who does that diamond art where
Oh,
you take the
I
little
can't see that.
the little plastic diamonds that you pick them up with a little
Yep.
wax tip and then you push them down onto sticky paper and and they create this
I
beautiful
think it looks so cool.
mosaic of stuff, but it's like
But I'd be like,
and by the end of it is like this. Just like,
I'd be blind.
that would be me. It's like I watched a YouTube channel. I should save that one. This woman, she tries out all these different crafts, and she has a great big Saint Bernard. You know where this is going already, right?
Uh-huh.
So she's pulled down, she's opened up, she's going to do this row or these rows on this picture. So she's peeled back the sticky so she gets to the right row, and then she's got all the plastic covered things, all that she this dog jumps up on the table, and all these diamonds go everywhere. And this woman is caught it on tape. Wow. She needed oxygen afterwards. I was like, oh my dear Lord. Oh, I couldn't breathe. And for the life of me now, I can't find that video. So it was just like, I mean, and she just, the look of horror on her face is
Yeah.
always time.
Went everywhere. Yeah.
Oh my God. So, okay, that was our last words of encouragement. Anything else? No?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't panic, I think would be mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
don't panic.
That's a good one.
It's only fabric. Yeah,
Yes.
it's not, it's not like it's not like you're doing brain surgery.
Yep.
Surgery with a stiletto, right? I mean,
That's what the quilting marine says. It's only fabric.
yes. And it's just your time, and you know what? If you sew a bunch of stuff wrong, there's always like, stitch rippers.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well get really good at this because, yeah.
Yeah. And if I'm really frustrated with it and it doesn't get used, in the crumb bin.
That's right. Yeah. If it's like, if you've mangled it with your stitch ripper, well, maybe you just need to spend more time to learn how to use this, but it can always go into a crumb or a string or something. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Right. You're right.
It will be a use
Absolutely
for
right.
it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. You still use it. Yeah. Well, Kelley, I'm so glad that you came out today to hang out and chat and all this stuff. This was so much fun. This was
Thank you,
really
Brenda. It
great.
was definitely fun.
Yeah. Now, for my viewers, Kelley's link is going to be in the show notes below, so she knows the shout out is coming. So go over to her channel, and give her a shout, and if you like what you see over there, you share, like, subscribe, tell your friends about her too, right? I mean, that's all. We have to kind of help each other along here. So if we're gonna build
Appreciate
a
it.
community, that's what we got to do. We got to help each other. So
And make friends.
Kelley, it was wonderful having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, you guys, take care. Bye.
Bye.
My husband and I would love to thank you for all of the amazing people that we have met along this crazy YouTube adventure that we've been having. We do free speaking engagements too, so if you're part of a guild and they're looking for people to talk and and chat with in their monthly meetings, tell them that I'm doing free ones just to help the guilds out, because it's been a tough time for the guilds as well. Share, like, and subscribe with your friends. Make sure that they're they get the word out on us. That's the best way you can do to help us out. So until we meet again, I want to thank you. Okay, goodbye.